it was just fun to do it as a community and to be able to all break bread, break your fast together as a family, and like your grandma shouting at you to come and sit down, and we're watching Avatar: The Last Airbender, and it's just great. Like Ramadan, I have the best memories of Ramadan growing up.
On In Good Faith, we believe that all faith traditions have something to teach us about how God is working in the world and in our lives. So join us as we listen and learn. Today in Good Faith, I'm speaking with two BYU students who have wonderful connections with Ramadan and specifically with the final day, the celebration of Eid. And we're going to learn about this. We're talking with Salah, a business major, the BYU Arab Student Association president. Sama, thank you for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Also in studio is Tala Alnasser, studying public relations and French studies, originally from Jordan. She's the newly elected BYU student body VP for Brigham Young University. Yes. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, let me start with the BYU Arab Student Association. Maybe this seems obvious, but who began this and why have it?
It all started when my sister and I were just kind of sitting, and we really recognized that there was like a need for the Arab students on campus to have representation, number one, and number two, for there to be a place where students can go to kind of learn about Arab culture and everything that has to do with it. But we were really inspired by our parents who more than 15 years ago had the Arabic club on campus when my dad was getting his PhD and my mom was doing her master's. At the time, I think they were like the second wealthiest club on campus, second to the salsa club. So shout out salsa club. So yeah, we were like, what if we just did something like that again? Me and my sister started the Arab Student Association. We got Tala on board as well with us. And ever since then, this was October 2022, we got started. Actually all of our events had like a lot of attendance, and
nice.
We were really surprised, I guess, by that. But
so
we were
it's
very
not
happy.
Just the students who are Arab, North African, but students who want to learn.
Yeah. So we welcome everyone. I mean, anyone that wants to learn about Arab culture or just wants to have some shawarma, or anyone that wants to have henna drawn on their hand or whatever, like anyone who wants to learn a little bit more and kind of gain that like proximity with the Arab culture is more than welcome, and anyone just in general is more than welcome to come to our events. And that's kind of what it's for, because we recognize there's not a lot of us on campus, so
it'd be a hangout.
It would literally just be like a group, us like hanging out like for fun.
Is there a Facebook page or an official way to people can join or hear about events?
Yeah, so on the club, BYU USA like club's website, you can join as an official member if you're a student. But we also have an Instagram. It's byu.asa. that we post all of our events on there. We also post other clubs like events, and that's where we hope to like be more active there. It's just been a little difficult this past year. That's kind of why we wanted to have it, is to create a space where we feel like our culture is being accurately represented.
Yes.
And people feel like there's authenticity in what they're interacting with, right? We do our best to be as authentic as possible to our culture so that we're not cheating anyone that wants to come for an authentic experience.
Well, how great to make the effort to speak to you who know, and this is your life experience, rather than I'll find something on Wikipedia, which is bound to be 100% accurate.
Yeah.
Tala, I wonder, as the first student body vice president who is Muslim, does your faith interact at all with what you hope to do in that position? Was that a motivating factor?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Couple of things. I mean, I've been actually really grateful for, after getting elected and working with some of the coordinators at BYU USA, because they've actually been really accommodating towards Ramadan or the 5 prayers that I have on the daily. They're planning activities for May, and like they've reached out to me and told me like, hey, would you mind telling us some of the times that you'll be praying in so we know how to incorporate that into the schedule, which is something I honestly didn't expect, but I really, really appreciated.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah. And as far as why I ran, I think both my faith and my culture played a really big role, because Sarah Sam, my running mate, when she reached out to me, it was around October, November, and you know, everything that's going on in Palestine was happening at that time.
Yes.
And it was also a time where Arab students on campus had received a lot of backlash from either students, unprovoked, right? Individuals on campus, sometimes administrators, unfortunately, using like racially coded language or whatever it is. And so to me, I think once I understood that me running was a lot bigger than just like me being in that position and all the things that I'd personally gained from being in that position, it became evidently clear that I had to do it for my community, right? Because a lot of the interactions that we had in fall semester was really, really hard for us, really, really hard. I think after that, a lot of the times it felt like we weren't getting the institutional support that we would have liked to get, even though, we appreciate everyone who reached out to us, checking in and all of that. I think how we're best supported is by allowing us to express our culture, our values, like hosting events or whatever it is. And it was more difficult kind of trying to navigate that because to some people, it may seem like a complicated issue, even though to us it really wasn't. And so a large part of my decision was wanting to be a lot more proactive at my time at BYU and understanding that a lot of individuals, either on this campus or off campus, simply never had the opportunity to get proximate with Muslims or with Arabs.
Yes.
And I think that's what pushed me to want to run with Sarah. Us being in that position is going to make us create spaces of proximity where people are going to ask questions, and by asking questions they feel more comfortable, right? And so it definitely did play a big role. Good. I would say.
I think it kind of goes hand in hand, is combating the misrepresentation of us and our faith and our culture and who we are as a whole. Also to rehumanize ourselves and rehumanize the way that we are, like people see us, even if it's just here at BYU. And it's that love like for who we are and that love for each other and our community that has been instilled in us by our religion and by our faith and by our culture, that we want to do this. And God has told us to seek out an education to speak up for those who don't maybe have a voice, and to not oppress others, and not only not oppress others, but speak up for those who are being oppressed. And we're doing our best to follow it.
We're trying.
And all of it's just kind of like in pursuit of this most accurate representation of who we are, because we love our faith, we are strong, we are secure in it, and we are secure in who we are, how we practice it.
Well, I hope we can help amplify your voices even a teeny bit here by having you here and sharing. Of course, we're talking about Ramadan, so a 40-day fast. This is the holy month in Islam, when, my understanding, this is the month when the Prophet Muhammad received what we know as the Quran.
Yes.
During this month, and that's why it's the holy month. Something I didn't know until just a few years ago is that, unlike celebrations on the Western calendar, Ramadan can be at a different time.
Yes.
Tell me about that.
It's because we go off of the lunar calendar, which means that it gets each year Ramadan moves backwards or forwards or whatever it is, 11 days. So for example, this year we started March 10th. Anyways, beginning of March is when we would start, because it's 11 days previous to when this year started, and then so on and so forth. It's kind of fun because eventually Eid, the last day of, or the first day of Eid or the last night of Ramadan, is going to fall on Christmas Eve, meaning that we're going to be celebrating the first day of Eid when all our Christian friends are celebrating Christmas. So it's
a giant party.
A giant party.
That's in 2030 or something. I don't know.
Not that long.
I don't know.
2030. Anyways,
that'll
so
be fun
eventually,
to look forward to, actually.
Yeah, it'll be fun to see that all over the world, right? But yeah, so we go by the lunar calendar, which is why it moves back every year.
When you're at a university or any place here in the U.S. where the predominance of people are not observing Ramadan, is that difficult, or you're able to just adjust to the fasting sunrise to sunset? Because that's just eating is your own choice.
Yeah, I think, it's always helpful, when everyone else is fasting and stuff, because you're oh, I can't complain, everyone's doing it too. But I would say more or less it's been fine. You adapt to it, it's just something that's part of our faith. And I think if you ask most Muslims, what's your favorite month? They'll say Ramadan, 100%. Ramadan's my favorite month. It's been really interesting being at BYU and doing it, because a lot of our friends, especially at the Office of Belonging, have chosen to participate in Ramadan with us. So they fasted half of Ramadan or a few weeks or whatever it is. They don't have to do it, but it's comforting, and it's kind of endearing to know that they're participating in something that they know means a lot to you, even if it doesn't to them. And I think that's very special, and that's been something that I've really appreciated being here. BYU I think is an incredible institution because it provides this almost like interdisciplinary faith-based approach to success and to education. I think that's really cool. Having the opportunity to constantly have religion in the discussion in moderation is awesome, and it allows us to have a lot of interfaith conversations or experiences. I'd say more or less it's been good. People have been, a lot of professors have been really accommodating and respectful. So
it's not really too hard, I would say. I think when we're in the office and we see our friends eating, we're like, dang, I wish I could be eating right now. But that's about as hard as it gets.
But you know who else wishes to be eating right now?
Yes, and that's another thing. It's been different this year because we're grateful that we have a meal secure at the end of the day.
Yes.
And that's not the case for a lot of people around the world nowadays. Yes. It's just been very enlightening. I'm kind of sad to see it end. This Ramadan, normally it goes by pretty fast, but this Ramadan went by super, super fast. It's a spiritually cleansing month. Yeah. It's meant to and Tala mentioned this in the article about Ramadan in the Daily Universe by Rayhana Wilson. She said that it kind of sets the precedent of how the rest of the year should be. Yeah. So, for example, us waking up before dawn proves that we can get up before dawn to pray Fajr, which is the first prayer of the day. Fasting from gossiping or, maybe swearing or just, it's more than just fasting from food, proves that you can go without doing those things. So people might choose a personal thing for growth like that.
Yeah,
oh, yeah.
For sure.
It's kind of similar to Lent in that way, in that someone choose to give something up, right, for those 40 days. But it's proof that you can go without these things. And I think when you're giving something up for the sake of God and for the sake of strengthening your relationship with God, you see so many more blessings. It was the beginning of Ramadan and I had made a really strong prayer for my future. And then the next day, one of my friends told me about this really cool opportunity and I literally started crying. Ramadan is such a blessed month and God and the angels are always listening. There are angels everywhere just listening oh, what does this person
want? Would you say they work overtime?
They're working overtime. They're clocked in. They're clocked in all the time.
Clocked in and locked in.
I know. They're okay, we got to work overtime and get these people their prayers and their wishes. And so the spiritual strengthening brings so many blessings, even though it seems oh my gosh, I'm so tired. I want water. And I'm a snacker. So Ramadan I love snacking. So it's definitely hard, but it's completely fine. It's not unbearable. We don't need help. We just
I would say Ramadan is so multidimensional, and that's why I love it so much. The fast from water and food is just the physical manifestation of the fast, right? But there's the spiritual and emotional aspect to it. I mean, when you're fasting, the thing that makes it so special is that you're so fatigued in terms of you're not drinking, you're not eating or whatever. So any prayer that you give, is coming from the heart. Especially those last few minutes before iftar, before you break your fast. That's when we believe that the dua, the supplication, the prayer that you're making is guaranteed to be accepted because you're most vulnerable at that time. You're so close. And if you could center your focus from I'm about to eat in 2 minutes to let me take these 2 minutes to really make a prayer from the heart, that's how it's so special. Yeah. And another thing that I love about Ramadan is, again, it's an opportunity for you to work on something. A lot of people think that you're trying to be the best Muslim, the best person you can in Ramadan. And a lot of people overwhelm themselves with a lot of great habits, which is awesome. But the point of Ramadan is not to move past it. It's to move forward with it. So every Ramadan, I try and pick something that I really want to work on. That way I'm not overwhelming myself, but still being proactive and optimizing my time, fasting and stuff. So each Ramadan, I try and pick something I really want to work at. And then after Ramadan, that becomes a habit. It's implemented in my life.
Thank you. The final day, which you hinted at already, Sama, is Eid al-Fitr, the breaking of the fast. Is that what that means?
Yeah.
That's not a day you celebrate by fasting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually forbidden to fast on that day.
Yeah, you literally can't.
Yeah,
so talk to me about what happens on that day and what it means.
Each family and I think each country and culture is a little bit different. So for me, I've only really spent the bulk of all the Eid al-Fitrs that I've had in my life here in Utah. So we have a routine where we go to the Eid prayers, which is where we just pray and thank God for helping us get through the month with health and safely and just hope that we can benefit as much as we can from it moving forward. And just like prayers to kind of, tie it all up, I guess. And those Eid prayers are consistent with in Islam, just like as a whole. Like
that's not cultural. That's like Islamic.
That's Islamic, where we all like pray Eid morning prayers. And then we will go to brunch with like all of our family friends, and then we go home, we take a nap, and then we wake up again and then go to someone else's house for like tea and cookies and things like that. Herbal tea. Yes. And then it's this way for, I think, a lot of Islamic cultures where parents or aunts and uncles will give like the children like something called aidiyah, which is like money. So the older you get, the more money you get, which is really great. But then I think me and Tala are reaching an age where it's like, do we receive it or do we start giving it now? I think we're still in the clear to receive it. But
as long as you're students, you can qualify.
Yeah, we're students. As soon as we get to graduate and have careers, like I think it's going to start looking bleak for us. So we have to give all the kids.
So you bring up children.
Yeah.
So little children to say, we're going to fast from sunrise to sunset. How do you learn this, or how was this taught? Maybe you can just share in your families. How did you learn to do that? Do you do a little at a time, or how does it work?
Yeah, so in the LDS church, there's the age of accountability, which I think is 8, if I'm not mistaken. In Islam, it's not like a certain age, but it's when you hit puberty is when like you're more held accountable for your actions. And so leading up to that point, parents don't force, for the most part, they don't like force their kids to fast and stuff. But when you're a kid and you see everyone around you, all the people you look up to fasting, you want to participate in it. And at least when I grew up, I think it's something that's common amongst like a lot of Arab children. There's this thing called Somt al-Asfura, which is like the fast of the bird, where they just fast until like 12 p.m. and then they can eat whatever they want afterwards. And so when I was younger, I was committed to doing Ramadan. So I've been fasting ever since I was in first grade.
Wow.
Before dawn to sunset. I always loved it because I spent the bulk of Ramadans in Jordan with my family, with my extended family and stuff. And so all my cousins are fasting, like I'm fasting. It's something that we go through together. And even though I knew like it's fine if I didn't, or if I fasted like the fast of the birdie or something, I'd be fine. It was just fun to do it as a community and to be able to all break bread, break your fast together as a family, and like your grandma shouting at you to come and sit down, and we're watching Avatar: The Last Airbender, and it's just great. Like Ramadan, I have the best memories of Ramadan growing up.
Yeah, and for like little kids, normally parents will tell them, okay, as the closer they get to that age of puberty, if they haven't already been fasting, okay, you'll fast until midday, and then in 2 years you'll fast until 3, and then eventually, like once they hit puberty, they'll start going until sunset. But yeah, we have...
It's a build-up.
And that could be a different amount of time depending on the time of year, because of course the sun rises and sets, depending where you live.
Sure.
I'm not telling you anything
summer
you don't already know.
The summer is
for
much
you,
longer.
because you were here in Utah, right? Fasting it?
In Egypt, I think the sunset, or like back home, the sunset isn't as, or like in the summer, isn't as late.
It's like 7:30.
Closer to the equator.
Right.
Yeah.
But here it was like 9:30.
Oh my goodness.
And that's when I started fasting. I literally, I was like, okay, it's fine. Like
shaking. Come on.
And it's summer, and it's summer, so you're sitting around, you're not doing anything. So it's not like you have things. It's hot, and I'm like, okay, well, this is hot. I'm sure hell is hotter. Like I can do this. I can do this. It's fine. Like it's for God. Yeah. Like if I'm not doing this for anyone but God, and that's the best reason to do something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You mentioned some of it would be Islam worldwide. Other things might be cultural. Last year, our team was in Turkey.
Oh, wow.
During the last days of Ramadan and Eid. We went for the morning prayers at the Suleymaniye Mosque. Beautiful place. There were 2 things I want to ask about. One, it actually kind of makes me emotional. It was kind that they welcomed us into the courtyard. We didn't go in. Well, a film crew was allowed in during the imam sharing and the prayers, and we were in the courtyard. To hear that many people chanting and singing together that God is great. I mean, all I could do was say amen, but it was just so moving. And so I'm thinking of this unity that you're part of something. Even if you're here in the U.S., there are just a few of you observing, you're part of this unified observance worldwide. That's, I don't know, I think that would be very meaningful and unifying.
Yeah.
And the other thing was, after that, when people were sort of going their different ways, so many little children came up to us, and they had, and I don't know if this is a Turkish custom or if this is worldwide, but they had flowers and they had little bags of candy to give us, and they said, we want to share our joy.
Mm-hmm.
And I was very, very touched. In fact, we sat down and did an interview with them, asking about what Ramadan and Eid meant to them.
Mm-hmm.
Is that worldwide, or was that a Turkish custom?
We have similar things. It's just different. Like
it's the same principle
Yeah.
and value, just manifested in different ways. You know,
Right.
like each
Yeah.
culture does it in their own way. Like Turkish Muslims might give out, I don't know, a certain type of candy. Like we call it ma'moul, which is like I don't know what it is, like a cookie, like a dough with dates inside, like a cookie with dates inside.
Stuffed cookie. Yeah.
Yeah. So like each culture does it in its own way, but more it's the same value. It's the same principle, you know, of like hospitality, celebration. You want to share that joy.
With sweets too. We eat a lot of sweets, specifically during this Eid. Like this
well,
one.
if you want to
yeah.
learn about hospitality, go to a Muslim country.
Oh, yeah.
I guess you
and
could say that.
It's amazing.
Muslim country, and we might be biased, but more specifically an Arab Muslim country.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, I've been to Turkey and I love Turkey, but I also feel like there's no comparison. Like we just have more experience in our countries. I don't want anyone to think that like we're more hospitable. No, I'm sure everyone is super hospitable. All Muslims are super hospitable. But with us, like we've taken friends to our countries, and everyone, it's just a different feeling when we're there, and especially during Eid. So there's two Eids, Eid al-Fitr, the one that we're coming up on now, and Eid al-Adha, which is the Eid of sacrifice, which is when Abraham was going to sacrifice his son, but then God replaced it with a lamb. Anyways, Eid it feels very different because, like you said, we're part of something bigger, but Ramadan and Eid here, there's this feeling on the night before Ramadan where it's like, wow, all the Muslims around the world are getting ready to fast tomorrow, and it feels very surreal. I think this year, though, was a little different and harder.
Yeah.
This was the third annual Ramadan iftar that you held
Yes.
here on campus. So that's the breaking of the fast at the end. And you just invited people on campus or the community? Or tell me about that, what that was like. Or were you headed somewhere else with that?
Oh, I was just continuing about the thought about like being some part of something bigger and just like a worldwide thing. Just like to add on to that before I answer your next question. Like I said before, like we are hungry all day, and it's something that I feel like, I don't know, speaking for myself at least, I really took for granted in past Ramadans where I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to eat. I can't wait to eat. It had never occurred to me that there are people in the world that don't have, oh my gosh, I've been fasting only until this point, and then I'm going to eat, I'm going to feast, I'm going to drink all this water, I'm going to stuff my mouth with food. And some people don't have that luxury at all. In fact, it's so far from them.
In particular, this year, Ramadan is happening against the backdrop of events in Gaza, for instance.
Yeah.
Like people who don't even have water.
It's a man-made famine, I think. Unfortunately, little aid going in, and people are picking grass from the ground. And
like this Ramadan, and I think this Eid is going to be a little bit bittersweet because I think there's a little bit of survivor's guilt that a lot of Muslims have. Because where do you stand? Like you're watching your brothers and sisters literally getting carpet bombed every single day. And what do you do?
And you're
like
gonna
do you
pose for like Eid pictures.
Yeah, like have a Eid Met Gala. Like
it feels bizarre.
It feels dystopian, if I'm being completely honest.
Yeah.
Like the new Hunger Games movie came out a few months ago. Oh my gosh, I lost my mind at that movie because I was like, are you kidding me? This is like a social commentary, you know? And we were like in the theaters going like, do people see are people understanding what they're seeing right now?
Yeah.
So there's definitely a bit of survivor's guilt. That's why this Eid is going to be a little bit different. And this Ramadan has been a little bit different.
But I think the beauty of Ramadan is that we know that God has a hand in everything, in literally everything. And we know that like in this Ramadan, I think we were inspired to be even closer to our faith because seeing the unwavering, I'm not even going to say almost, it is unbreakable faith of all of our brothers and sisters in Gaza and in Palestine as a whole. Like there's
including Palestinian Christians.
Including Palestinian Christians. And
I just saw yesterday a post when they got to a hospital that had been bombed, the big one, Al-Shifa.
Al-Shifa.
They translated what had been written on the walls, which is, we accept our fate in the hands of God, who will save us one way or the other, which could mean deliver us, or maybe we'll die and we'll be removed from this. But that faith to say we will be delivered by God, we put ourselves in his hands.
Or like pictures of Christians in Gaza celebrating Easter. Literally, there's demolished buildings behind them. And you have Muslims like praying Taraweeh or night prayers right next to this demolished mosque, a mosque that's been completely bombed. And it's like, if they can remain close and even maybe closer to God in times like this, I think I can.
Excuse,
I think I can fast through this test.
I can't say for sure. Maybe you can. But would they be wanting you to observe and to celebrate? Because they can't.
Yeah. That's the craziest part, is that they would want us to. There's this video of this girl. She's her name's Bisan. She posts about, she's kind of like a journalist, and she takes videos and reports on a lot of what happens. And she tells us, she said, joy and being happy is not a betrayal to us. Like, we love life. We love life, and we would never want to guilt someone. And obviously we still feel guilty, but like she said, we would never want to guilt someone to thinking that they can't celebrate Eid. Just don't forget us. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I love that. Celebrate, but please don't forget us.
Yeah, because don't forget that we're still here and we're suffering, and like, don't forget about us. And I mean, we believe that, I know me and Tala at least, like, joy and being happy and celebrating who we are and parts of our identity is something that is so integral to Arab culture and who we are, because it's something that can never be taken away from us.
That's like the last thing, our faith, our belief.
Yeah, it's
like something you can't take, and that's why that's what gives it strength. It's like
you take all the clothes off our back, you take everything.
You destroy the material things, but it's like faith is one thing you can't touch. You know, it's faith. You know, so, you have it.
Yeah, and that joy, like, of us celebrating, like, Eid al-Fitr is essentially us, like, celebrating that we got through this holy month, and we did as best as we could to get closer to God. We're going to be happy. We're going to be, I would say, joyful that we were grateful. Yeah. We say that whenever anyone asks us how we're doing, we just say we're grateful. We're going to be very grateful that we have the ability and the capacity to be happy. We have the ability and the space to be happy. You know what I mean?
Like, I mean, in Islam, you know, when someone passes away, you mourn for 3 days, and after those 3 days, it's even Prophet like Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, peace be upon him, like, he says not move on, but like move forward. You know what I mean? Like, you could remember them and stuff, but you also have your life. Like, you still be happy, still be able to celebrate the little things and stuff. And she talked about this idea of being grateful. In Arabic, typically when someone asks you, how are you doing, or anything like that, a lot of Arabs, like Christians or Jews who are Arabs, or like Muslims, whoever it is, typically they say alhamdulillah, which just means praise be to God, like everything is going well. My grandma, before she passed away, Allah yarhamha, she rest in peace, she would always tell me, you know, she'd ask me, like, how are you doing? And I'd be like, yeah, like, I'm good. And she'd like slap me on the shoulder, be like, say alhamdulillah, always. And after she'd passed away, with everything going on in Gaza too, I just remember when people would ask me, like, how are you doing? Like, I'd say alhamdulillah, because I may not be feeling the best right now, but like, life's going good. I'm doing well in this life. I really am. I have a house to sleep in. I have my academics. I really am doing well. I'm not feeling the best, but like, I'm doing well, you know? And having that perspective has really made me become a lot more transparent with how I feel when someone asks me, how are you doing? I'm like, I'm doing well. Like, and I mean it wholeheartedly. So.
And that's something I think Ramadan has made us feel even more like, wow, we are really good. Like, it's 1 minute before sunset and I'm getting my food ready, and I'm like, okay, that was so easy. I didn't have to go to an airdrop place to pick up my food. I just like could take it out of the fridge.
Extra gratitude.
Right, So that's kind of what Ramadan is about.
So it's a teeny thing. But if I have friends, and I do, who are observing Ramadan, I've heard people say Ramadan Mubarak.
Yes.
Is that the appropriate thing to say?
Yeah, Ramadan Mubarak, Ramadan Kareem.
That one. And what does that mean? A happy Ramadan or
blessed?
Blessed Ramadan?
Yeah, Kareem means like gentle,
generous.
Generous.
Nice.
Yeah, so Ramadan Kareem is like Ramadan is generous.
Like,
and I've been saying Eid because I'm American, but you're saying Eid?
Eid. It's like it's a guttural. It's like
Eid.
Eid.
Okay, I'll work on it.
Yeah, you got it.
What would I say? And that's coming up, I believe, is it April 10th?
Depending
Okay.
on the moon.
Yeah.
Okay.
Literally.
And
what do you say to people that day?
You say Eid Mubarak. So
Yeah.
the same as Ramadan Mubarak, but Eid Mubarak.
Or in Jordan, we say like, Yinad alayna wa alaykum, which means like, may Eid be like blessed upon you. And I don't know, Yinad, like maybe celebrate or maybe Eid.
May we all celebrate pretty much.
Maybe we all celebrate, yeah.
Like, let's all celebrate.
Nice,
Eid.
nice.
Yeah. But yeah, Eid Mubarak is pretty much like.
Yeah, Eid Mubarak is a standard.
Yeah.
It's good.
We talk so much about faith here because this is all tied to faith.
Right.
Yeah.
You don't have to answer, but I want to ask, in case you'd like to, can you put your finger on why you believe? I mean, that's something each of us, because I was taught. Is it because of experiences? Is it something I feel?
That's a good question.
I think for two reasons. The first one was an experience that I had in France during my study abroad, where we went to Jardin à Giverny, which was like Monet's garden.
Yes.
And I wrote an essay. I was so inspired there that I just wrote an essay about how I think nature is the greatest evidence of God's existence. And initially what I was talking about is how, you go to different cultures and a lot of the times values are depicted through nature. And though you could argue about what type of tree it might be, you both agree that it's a tree. Like that's standard, objective truth. And I think that reflects kind of why I believe, at least, that I'm like, there's this part in the Quran that talks about how you can find verses of the Quran metaphorically in other disciplines if you have the intention of it. You study any discipline thoroughly and you'll find truth of like Islam in this case. And once I heard that khutbah, that talk, I started seeing it a lot more. Anytime I'm in class or whatever it is, I'm constantly thinking of how does this apply to my faith? How does it not apply to my faith? What's the difference, And I think it's really cool. And I also think the other half of it is like if you're an atheist, that's like the highest form of privilege. I'm sorry, but do you really think this is as good as it gets? I don't know. maybe you do. I mean, if you're an atheist, that's all. I love talking to my friends who have different faiths or who are agnostic or atheist or whatever it is. But really, you think this is as good as it gets?
We hope it gets a lot.
We hope that it gets a lot better. Because I try to be, for the most part, optimistic about things. And I just know, I see what's going on in Gaza, for example. And I'm like, there is no way this is going to be it. That's it. Yeah. There's no way. There's absolutely no way.
It's too awful.
It really is. And there's no way people just get away with things with impunity and stuff. There is accountability. Everything in life is balanced, right? Like in the Quran, anytime day is talked about, night is talked about. Mercy, justice, right? It's an equilibrium. And that's how I take it, with if there's good, there's also bad, or whatever it is. And the way that I see it, I think my religion professor put it really nicely, where he said, God gave us knowledge of the book and the agency to choose. I just think that's really beautiful. I see that pattern replicated in so many different parts of society, where it's like the law, for example. We have the law, knowledge of the law, or the ability to understand it, and then the agency to choose whether you want to exercise it or not. So you see these different patterns that exist in religion, or when we talk about religion, and how they apply to different disciplines, or how they're a social commentary on life and stuff. And to me, that's just proof enough for me. There's a verse in the Quran that talks about how it's not the eyes that are blind, but the hearts. And it's beautiful. It's you open your heart to it. How is logic and your heart in tune? It's not one or the other. It's not brains over heart or heart over brain or whatever it is. It's the fact that they're in tune together. It's just stuff like that. And also biologically, you're wired to believe in something bigger than you. That's neuroscience. We're talking neuroscience. I'm not even a neuroscience major.
Whether it's God, whether it's something else.
Just believing in something higher than you. I don't care. If you can believe in humanity and love and God and whatever it is, but biologically speaking, you are wired to believe in something bigger than you. And that just happened. For me, in my case, happens to be Islam, and it happens to be God.
Thank you, Tala.
Yeah. I think growing up in a predominantly Christian environment is very interesting, because you have to rediscover your faith for yourself. So you grow up, and I grew up obviously in a Muslim household. I prayed when my parents told me to pray. I fasted Ramadan. I did the actions, the task list, right? And then eventually I found myself, I think it was my junior year of high school. I didn't find myself in a place spiritually that I wanted to be. And it was like a very, very, very dark time in my life. I was old enough for my parents to like not tell me to go pray. Like they're like, we're not going to keep telling you to pray. Like you're going to pray because that's what you're supposed to do, but we're not going to keep reminding you because you're old now. You're not a child anymore. And so at that point, I had not been keeping up with my prayers as much as I should have. But I was in my room. It was nighttime, and I was just feeling a very heavy weight on not even my shoulders or my back. It was just like on my soul. Like my soul felt heavy, and it was muscle memory. Like something clicked, and I just got up and prayed the Aisha, which is the night prayer, like the prayer after like the sun has completely set. And then I just kept praying prayer after prayer after prayer after prayer after prayer after prayer, and until it got to be like 1 a.m. Then I went to sleep, and then I woke up at 4 again, and then I prayed more and prayed more and prayed more. Like literally until like my feet started hurting. That was kind of a turning point for me, because I really realized that I don't need anything in my life other than my connection with God. Obviously, connection with God will like bring other things, like my connection with my family, connection with good friends, things like that. But it was a turning point, and I found, like, rediscovered and refound Islam for myself. And I came to love it more than I love anything else. I just really, really, like, love Islam. And I think why I believe in Islam and why I came to discover that is because I was in a really hard place. But in discovering that, I also found that it's not just in our hard times that we should draw close to God. It's also when we're doing really well.
Yeah.
It's also when we're doing really well, you pray to praise God. You don't just pray to ask God for something, and then when your life is doing great, you forget about God. There's a set of verses in Surah Al-Fajr, or the dawn in the Quran, and it says, like, if your Lord gave you blessings and bounty, you say, oh, my God is so generous, and then your life is going to be great. But the second that your God doesn't provide you with what you prayed for, you say that your God has forsaken you and that he has forgotten you. And I think understanding that is understanding that just because God doesn't immediately give you what you want, just because your life is in shambles, or just because there's oppression in the world, doesn't mean that God has forsaken anyone. Inna ma'al usri yusra, fa inna ma'al usri yusra. Surely with hardship comes ease.
Indeed,
surely.
With hardship comes ease.
It's reiterated. It's pressed.
It's one of the only verses in the Quran that's like reiterated verbatim. Like, Inna ma'al usri yusra, inna ma'al usri yusra. Like as an affirmation, like from God.
He's saying, like, hardship always comes with ease, always. And it does. Like, believe in that. Trust that with every single hardship, there will be ease to make up for it.
And there's another part in the Quran that talks about how, what was it? If, like, they ask you where I am, like, tell them, like, I am near.
I don't remember the ayah,
like
but that's like pretty much the translation, yeah.
And it's the only verse in the Quran where God is speaking, like, directly.
Like in first person.
In first person, like I am
tell
near.
them I am near, not we. Because typically that's how he talks.
Yeah, like, hey, tell them that, God is near. Yeah. But this one is, I am near.
Speaking directly to the believer.
Yeah, to the reader, to the person who's reading. And I think, like, reading the Quran and understanding it, and understanding that there are signs in the Quran that, like Tala said, there is equilibrium in everything. And I'm going to tie back to Palestine because we can't stop talking about it. But anyways, I know that this, like, isn't the end. And I know that people that there's no way this is I feel like I know that there's a God, and I know that there will be justice because I know that there's a God, and I know that God is merciful and God is just. He is both of those things at the same time. That's kind of something that us as humans, we can't comprehend how someone can be both merciful and just, but that's because God is outside of our realm of, like, comprehension. We understand the qualities and traits that describe him. And even when you think about all the world crises, slavery, like, the people that perpetuated slavery, I have to believe that they're going to be held accountable, or else I'm going to go insane. People that perpetuated the Holocaust, those people have to be held accountable, not just in this life, because there's no justice like God's justice. I have to believe that, or I will go insane. I have to believe that.
I've often felt that you find out that you believe when you're able to put something into God's hands and trust that God will care for it.
Exactly.
Because if you didn't really believe, it would be like, I can't do this because
I have
I'm
to take
dropping
care.
it.
Right.
Yeah.
And like if I were to pass away or anything, and I don't know, like I found out, Islam wasn't the right one, like I don't know, the churches, right? I would have been like, you know what? I'd still be I lived a good life. I'm content.
I would be very happy though if I'm in the grave and I find out that Islam was like out of all the
angel
religions.
comes to you. It's like, what's your religion, Sama?
And I would literally start like dancing in that grave.
Because when in Islam we believe, when you're in the grave you get asked the 3 questions like man rabbuka ma dinuka wa man rasuluka, which is like who's your God, what's your religion, and who's the last prophet or something. Yeah. And so
and it comes,
let's go.
Yes. And like what's interesting in the Quran. This is how we talk with each other, by the way. No. Like we interrupt each other all the time.
Really, really fun to listen to. I'm learning a lot.
Very raw, so I hope the listeners are enjoying this very candid way of us talking. But like with the senseless killing of tens of thousands of people, I have to believe, like especially since we're living it, right? I have to believe that God is going to serve justice to these people. I have to believe that all those children who were killed are in heaven laughing. I have to believe that. And I have to believe that one day their parents are going to join them there. I have to, because I would literally go insane. Like, I have to believe that because I have to believe that for everyone. You know what I mean? I believe that for them. It keeps me steadfast on the faith, and it keeps me patient, keeps me focused, and it hopeful. And I know that I have to put my empathy and my tears and my sadness into action. Yeah. Because we believe we're going to stand before God and answer for all our actions. And I love God, but I also fear God a lot. And I'm afraid of that interaction where, what if God asks me, my creation was suffering. What were you doing when they were starving? What were you throwing away food when they were starving? What were you doing when their parents were getting killed? Were you rude to your parents? What were you doing when their houses were getting demolished? Were you complaining about your house or how your room looks or how things like that? And so that's why I keep doing
Ahmad Sulaiman, who's like a scholar, talks about how empathy is not about the intensity of the emotion. It's about how you manifest it into action, whether that be through prayer, through advocacy, through keeping it in the discussion, like all those, like empathy. Put it into action. Don't just say it.
As you said earlier, but don't forget us.
Mm-hmm. Right.
You two are wonderful representatives of your faith.
Thank you.
Because you live it. You're the president of a student association. You're the newly elected student body vice president. I mean, you have chosen to be in places where you are visible, where people like me will say, let's talk about this. So thank you for doing that, because that's an extra, here's one of the things when you get asked those questions. Yeah. Well, I spoke up when I saw an opportunity. And I'm not judging whatever else you may do, but what a beautiful thing you're doing. Thank you for speaking with me today. Yeah. I'm speaking with Salah, the BYU Arab Student Association president, and Tala Alnasser, newly elected BYU Student Body vice president. Ostensibly, we were focused on Eid, but we've covered a gamut of very, very important subjects. And Ramadan Mubarak.
Thank you.
Eid Mubarak.
Allah barik feek.
Thank you.
Allah barik feek just means may God bless you, like just returning it. Yeah. But thank you so much for having us. We love our faith, and we really are happy that we had this opportunity to talk about it and share a little piece of why we love it with everyone listening.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Many thanks to Sama, Salah, and Tala Alnasser for speaking with us. This episode was produced and edited by Leah King and Ashton Rowan and me. Our production team also includes Katarina Martinic and Josh Orton. In Good Faith is committed to the idea that we all benefit from hearing people of widely varying backgrounds share their personal experience with faith and belief. In fact, we think people with such experience deserve some of our best listening. If interfaith understanding is important to you, be sure and leave a comment or review on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts. Find us on Twitter or X at In Good Faith Pod, Instagram and Facebook, we're In Good Faith Podcast, and on YouTube, youtube.com/@in-good-faith. In Good Faith is a production of BYU Radio. I'm Stephen Cap Perry. I hope you join me again soon, right here, In Good Faith.